नमामि धन्वन्तरिमादिदेवम् सुरासुरैर्वन्दितपादपद्मम् लोकैर्जरारुभय मृत्युनाशम् धातारमीशं विविधौषधीनाम्.
Presently, Dean Research, National Institute of Ayurveda, Jaipur. He is Professor and HOD, PG Department of Roga and Vikruti Vigyan, National Institute of Ayurveda, Jaipur. He has more than 20 years of postgraduate teaching and research experience in the field of Ayurveda. He has received many awards, to mention a few: Madhav Ratna, Bishak Bhushan, and the prestigious Purushottam Shastri Nanal Charak Award. He has published 54 research papers and 16 books and chapters to his credit. So we will be happy to listen to you, sir, on the topic of a concept of health in other medical sciences. Vaidya Upendra Dixit sir has shared his views on concept of health in Ayurveda Samhita. We are going to listen you the concept of health. The learners are eager to listen you the concept of health, about the concept of health from other sciences. I request you to share your thoughts on the topic, sir. Dr. Pawan Kumar Godotwar, sir.
Thank you, Yogesh ji, for the introduction. I pay my respects to Adaraniya Gopal Bashish sir, Bagel sir, Handal sir, my elder brother Anup Thakur ji, and the team Charak Samhita from Jamnagar. It is indeed an honor to share my thoughts on health from contemporary sciences. Understanding concept of health in contemporary medical sciences, the topic allotted to me, components of health and their importance. And before going much further, I would like to draw your attention to a very beautiful video which is available on YouTube. Hans Rosling provides insight into health vis-a-vis global developments. I will be dealing with this topic from a case scenario point of view. Let's discuss some around 10 concepts of health around which the definitions are built. So we'll start with case scenario 1. A female aged 27 years reports in an ANC clinic. The doctor, that is you, does a thorough checkup and prescribes some medicines as per Masanumasic Paricharya. So my question is, has the doctor prescribed medicine for her disease? Yogesh ji, if not, does even health require medicines? These are some questions around which the first concept starts to build. That is called the biomedical model of health. A state characterized by anatomic, physiologic, and psychologic integrity, ability to perform personally, valued family, work, and community roles, ability to deal with physical, biological, psychological, and social stress. This was the definition and concepts applicable to clinical preventive medicine. It was pre-WHO era, quoted by Stokes J. It also said that health is a state. Then came the famous WHO definition, which we all harp on. WHO definition of health in preamble to the Constitution of the World Health Organization as adopted by the International Health Conference 19 to 22 June 1946. Very beautiful history is there for all this. Signed on 22nd July and entered into force on 7th April, the World Health Day, on 1948. It says that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. We forget that there are other clauses to this definition. The enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is also of importance. The other clauses are also important, but we'll let it go right now. But I would still advise the writers of the essays that go through actual document while dealing with health. This is the most famous definition, which says that it is a complete state. So it is a debatable word there. Then another very important debate, it is if the highest attainable standard of health, very next clause. So there is a conflict between complete and highest attainable standard of health. And then there is this another very important term, merely. We have already discussed that state itself is a debatable word, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So we'll go further. The first clause, whether it had been so intended or not, was quickly picked up as a definition of health. It is never mentioned that it is definition of health. It is just the first clause of the preamble. Few notice that it conflicted with the next principle. Highest attainable standard of health suggests that it is a flexible threshold of health. But the definition itself sets that threshold at complete. Implicit in the preamble as a whole was a view attributed to sociologist H.E. Sigrist that health must be more than the absence of a problem. It must also be something positive. So it is not just merely an absence of disease. Coming from the Ayurvedic concept, we don't deal in abhav. We want something as concrete as positive. So it is not just an absence will not do. We want something which has a definite presence. So concepts of health and disease as opposed to state. So it was immediately ruled out. It is not a state. It is a process. So going further, next definition in 1984, WHO again gave a new definition. The extent to which an individual or group is able to realize aspirations and satisfy needs and to change or cope with the environment, health is a resource for everyday life and not the objective of living. It is a positive concept emphasizing social and personal resources as well as physical capacity. A very big all-encompassing definition, shifting focus from state of something to being a resource. An important change. Coming to the next aspect, which was given by the then Director General Margaret Chan in 2008. Healthcare is an important determinant of health, as is lifestyles. Lifestyles are important determinants of health. Okay. So coming to this social determinants of health, a new term given then. So it has gained lot of currency since then, and therefore this topic also concerns that, the determinants or components of health. What are they? Another very important document which is relevant to us, the youngsters who will be writing those essays, that please go and check this. Healthy People 2020 is a document given by Public Health Reviews. It is a very important document, framework for improving US population health. It gives more prominence to health promotion and preventive approaches and adds a substantive focus on the importance of addressing social determinants of health. So what are these social determinants of health? Very quickly, they can be attributed to just three things which intersect each other. One is personal, another is socio-economic, and third is environmental. Going a little deeper into them, which we call biopsychosocial model of health. There is this biological, physical health, disability, genetic vulnerabilities, and intersecting temperament and IQ. Then there is the psychological sphere of self-esteem, coping skills, social skills. You can go on and on about each of them. Family relationships and trauma. Then there is social and psychological intersecting with family relationship, but social apart, having family circumstances, school, peers, drug effects with biological, and in center of it is a very, very important aspect called mental health. So social and economical determinants of health, the environment in which people are born and live and learn and play and work for their entire lifetimes and then gradually age. So if we quickly go through what a person goes through in his environment, if he is a lavaris, he will be born and then live in that environment. It will determine his future, his health. Or he can be a coolie, or a laborer, or a affluent person, or he can grow all the big. His environment changes, his health status changes. He can be from very affluent class, or he can aspire and make others affluent too. So the social and economic determinants of health are very important. You can imagine and you can just think of it. Where the person is born, he lives, learns, plays, works, and ages gracefully. The environment determines that. So another very important social model of health, Dahlgren and Whitehead in 1991 gave this beautiful model: age, sex, and heredity factors at the core, individual lifestyle factors, then social and community networks, agriculture, food, education, work environment, living and working conditions, unemployment, water and sanitation, which we generally don't think in terms of that which concerns a doctor, but actually it does concern a doctor because it is a determinant of health. General, socio-economic, cultural, and environmental conditions. Then another very important health field concept was given by the Lalonde report in a new perspective of health of Canadians, a very beautiful working document from which the Ottawa Declaration was given. It gives into 4 quadrants: environment, lifestyle, human biology, and health organization, where some of these things, for example, environment, the individual has little or no control. For example, right now we are going through such a situation on which we don't have any control, the lockouts, and we cannot do anything about it. We cannot go beyond what is happening in the environment. But the lifestyle, the personal decisions and risks, which an individual has almost absolute control, he can decide what he can do. Human biology, as a result of organic makeup, his genetic makeup, not much control over that. But health organizations, the institutional arrangements, like the policies and everything else, which do affect an individual's health. We need to go into the details of this report also. A very beautiful report. Then another very interesting model, very beautiful model, is this Makerich model. Health is a dynamic state of well-being, characterized by a physical, mental, and social potential, which satisfies the demands of a life commensurate with age, culture, and personal responsibility. Very beautiful terminology is used. If the potential is insufficient to satisfy these demands, the state is disease. Very interesting model, and very interesting and very effective too. So we will go in just slight details of that. There are 5 components to this model and 10 complex interactions given by these arrows. The demands of life at the very core, biologically given potential from childhood to adulthood and to old age, the potential, then personally acquired potentials, very beautifully described in the paper. I would again suggest the essay writers to go to this paper and check this for yourself. It's a very beautiful determinant. Social determinants of health and environmental determinants of health. They all interact with each other. So these are the 10 complex interactions. These interactions can lead to changes in health. Biological given potential with personally acquired potential, demands of life with biological given potential. He has given an example of the taraju. On one hand, the balance. So if the balance goes down, health decreases, disease will occur. If the balance is perfect, health is good, disease will not occur. So there is a balance and interaction between these 5 components. A very interesting model. I would have loved to go into the details of this, but again, a humble suggestion that go and read. It is worth that time. Again, very important concepts. Health and disease concepts come from 2 angles. Empirical judgments about human physiology and normative judgments about human behavior or well-being. So naturalistic concept of health and disease, the human body comprises organ systems that have natural functions from which they can depart in many ways. Some of these departures from normal functioning are harmless or beneficial, but others are not. These latter are the disease. This is a very, very important concept on the distinction between diseases and illness. Health as a theoretical concept from Bourse. It is called Boursian philosophy. It has almost, say, you can say 25% of concepts of health come from Bourse, a lot of followers, and it is an entire school of thought called Boursian thought regarding health and disease. Then there is the constructivist contention that there is no natural, objectively defined set of human malfunctions that cause disease. Rather, to call a condition a disease is to make a judgment that someone in that condition is undergoing a specific kind of harm. So it is coming from the disease point of view. That is called constructivist contention. The difference: for naturalists, diseases are objectively malfunctioning biological processes that causes harm. For constructivists, diseases are harms that we blame on some biological process because it causes the harm, not because it is objectively dysfunctional. Very interesting concept, needs to go into detail. So we'll go for a case scenario. A male aged 42 years comes for routine checkup. On examination, his BP is 150 by 90 mmHg. He has no other signs and symptoms. Will you label him hypertensive? Yogesh ji? There are certain guidelines that we will check for 3 times and all that, but repeatedly he is getting 50 by 90. So after 3 times, we will label him hypertensive. So actually he has no signs and symptoms. Concept of disease has undergone a process of development. Disease is just an observable suite of symptoms with a predictable course unfolding, like schizophrenia given by Kraepelin. There were just signs and symptoms and a predictable course and subsets of schizophrenia. That was in 1899. Then diseases are destructive process in bodily organs which divert part of the substance of the individual from the actions which are natural to the species to another kind of action. This is from Snow in 1853. Explanations that cite pathological processes in the bodily systems. But what I was coming to, the actuarial model, given as late as Green in 2007, prescribing by numbers, the statistics starts playing in. Presence of elevated risk, for example, as indicated by high blood pressure in the example, to be a disease, even in absence of overt symptoms or clearly destructive pathological processes. So processes has not set in. There is a number, but it is a risk factor and it is a disease. It is to be labeled a disease. It is an hypertension. So the outcome of systems in a poorly regulated state that is stable, albeit suboptimal, diseases, illnesses like hypertension, and again to bring into focus Cushing's disease also. No other signs and symptoms, but just in a stable but it is still suboptimal. So idea of specific pathogenic process in medicine includes a concept of dysregulation. I'm not using the terminology of Ayurveda, which was very excellently described by Upendra Dikshit ji. Dysregulation, and compare this with Kshay, Sthan, Vruddhi of all the doshas and dhatus. But still, dysregulation is an important determinant of health. Case scenario 3. A male patient in inverted commas, asking that whether he is patient or not, reports to your sexology OPD. On history, it is revealed that he is homosexual. Would you label homosexuality as disease? Again, somebody to answer, so I will ask Yogesh ji. Yogesh ji, what do you say? Is homosexuality a disease? These are the concepts revolving around the definitions of health and disease. So it is another view which is called a revisionist view. Our concepts of health and disease might be a necessary starting point, but should not constrain where the inquiry ends up. It can go and end in some entirely different kind of paradigm. Such revisionist thought was important in overturning the psychiatrist view dominant until 1970s that homosexuality is a mental illness. Activists argued that homosexuality was diagnosed for offensive moral reasons and not for medical ones, and the classification of homosexuality as a disease was changed. So now you cannot label homosexuality as a disease because it is not a disease, but still it is just a result of lobbying on moral grounds rather than on basis of any new discovery. So again, we need to think from all these perspectives. So morality also comes into play to label somebody diseased or not. Constructivists strive to uncover the moral and social values have always played in medical diagnosis and argue that our disease categories are hence not properly naturalistic. So naturalistic tend towards conceptual conservatism. They typically appeal to our intuitions about illnesses, support their own emphasis on underlying bodily malfunction. So constructionist view, the constitution question, which asks for the physical basis of person's condition, the status question, which asks what makes a physical configuration a disease. There are two angles to it. One should be a constructivist about some diseases and a naturalistic about others. That needs to be the point of focus of the essay. That where should we focus on some diseases, that whether constructivist or whether naturalist. But for that, we need to understand what these terms mean. One could be naturalistic about bodily disease, but constructivist about psychiatry. So Thomas Szasz very famously argues that mental disorders cannot exist. He says that they don't exist at all because they are not the result of tissue damage. So he is a naturalist about disease, which leads him to deny that mental illness is real. Very important concept when we are thinking in these terms of abstract diseases, and to offer a critical analysis of our psychiatric practices. And Indian claims that we are merely taking conduct we don't like and calling it pathological. Very, very interesting, different point of view. It says that mental disorders don't exist. So case scenario 4. Imagine yourself in America of pre-Lincoln era, just before Civil War. So a slave runs away. It was legal then. A slave runs away, is caught and brought to your mental illness clinic. You label him mentally ill. Would you be legally right? Just because he ran away. Yogesh ji, it happened. It is called a disease called drapetomania. American slaves who tried to escape were afflicted with drapetomania, the disease causing slaves to run away. Just think of it. So how your concepts change. It was quoted by Samuel Cartwright in Report on the Diseases and Physical Peculiarities of the Negro Race, reprinted in 2004, quoted to Samuel Cartwright in 1880s. Another very interesting disease is this Dysesthesia ethiopica. Slaves were also found uniquely prone to this disease, which made them neglect the property rights of their masters. So the name game towards the sociology of diagnosis. Very interesting paper. So diagnosis based on just the social norms of those days. So our current taxonomy of illness could involve both naturalistic intuitions about some conditions and constructivist rationalizations about others. So say Murphy and Dominic, very, very important position paper on concepts of disease and health, Stanford Encyclopedia. Interesting, very nice paper. Problems for constructivism, I will not go into too much of the details, but what I want to harp on is this: our disease concepts cannot just be matter of disvaluing certain people or their properties. It has been done. It must involve a reason for disvaluing them in a medical way rather than some other way. Just think of some disabilities, but it doesn't reflect only till disabilities. It goes way beyond that. The definitions of health, definition of disease, they disvalue the certain people. So case scenario 5, you all remember this case scenario. I'm taking you back not just to American Revolution, to our Mahabharata times. Just imagine yourself to be sitting somewhere here in the Darbar, and he is Karna. He is Arjun, she is Draupadi, we know that. But Karna was refused participation in a social activity. So the disadvantage or restriction of activity caused by contemporary social organization, which takes little or no account of people who have physical impairments or other impairments, and thus excludes them from participation in the mainstream of social activities. An important concern. The partitioning of human variation into normal versus the abnormal has no firmer footing than the partitioning into races. Diversity of function is a fact of biology. Amundsen, 2000. Very important, again, position paper on consideration of other factors, the determinants of health. So race cannot just be a determinant of health just on the basis of race. There should be some medical cause to it. To justify treating some condition as medical issues and others as social or legal rather than medical, all a normativist needs to say is that this is morally speaking the right thing to do. Label someone is sick by saying that according to our values they are sick, and no more need to be said. It is actual paper, grounded disease. So no more need to be said. Just because I say so, he is sick, so we can just label and frame a diagnosis and that person will be labeled sick. This is from 2019. So other scholars do think there is more to say, which is called ER test, emergency room test. Disorder is a condition that makes someone worse off and is such that emergency room personnel would be negligent if they did not remedy, if they could. So taken literally, ER test is also not good enough. It requires medical personnel to teach the local language, say Tamil, to the migrant laborers, because not knowing Tamil in Madras or Chennai is making their lives worsen by lacking a competence in it. A general theory of well-being would also be as desirable as a theory of well-being, ill-being and well-being. So I'm not going to the ill-being, I will just focus on well-being and bring you a beautiful concept. This needs some further elaboration. So this is the arrow, the paradigm shift, which is called illness-wellness continuum, given by John W. Travis in 72, then modified in 88, and this present version is from 2004. On one side is premature death, and the other side is high-level wellness. There is increasing squares, size, signs, symptoms, and disability. And there is a neutral point where there is no discernible illness or wellness. So treatment paradigm goes only till here. Signs, symptoms, disability, or premature death. But the wellness paradigm goes to awareness, education, growth, and high-level wellness. This is the wellness paradigm. Disease management, risk factors, early detection or cost control from here to here, and then healthy population, that is the prevention. All concern Ayurvedic management. The illness-wellness continuum is well within our definitions of health and disease. This is health, this is wellness, the spectrum. And entire thing comes under purview of just the definition of swasthya given by Sushruti. We all know that. We can delimit a purely medical sphere enumeratively without reference to the concerned disease in terms of pharmacological and surgical interventions. So a new definition has come now, new angle, the nature of disease. Resnick says that just pharmacological intervention or surgical intervention, if it is needed, then it is a disease. We can label it as disease. So case scenario 6 for you to ponder upon. A young female, 25 years, reports to your gynecological OPD. After consultation, you prescribe her contraceptive pills for birth control. Have you treated her disease? So what Resnick says, lot of medical attention is directed at conditions which we do not call diseases. Prescribing contraceptive pills is a pharmacological intervention, but it is not directed against a disease. So we need to think this aspect also, that just pharmacological intervention is not to be labeled as disease caring. So it can still be a health care. Concepts of health and disease necessarily involve both biological and evaluative judgments. Naturalism, we have talked a lot about it, that it deals, disease involves a causal process that includes biological abnormalities. Distinction between pathological and non-pathological versions of the same outward phenomena. So again, case scenario 7 for you very quickly. A male patient, 82 years old, reports for general weakness in your geriatric OPD. OPD is geriatric. You diagnose Jarajanya Dorobalya, or to make it easier for English knowing people or Sanskrit not knowing people, that it is a normal weakness born out of senescence or old age. You counsel him that it's normal aging process. You do not prescribe, you prescribe Chyawanprash and other Balavardhak Aushadhis. Is your diagnosis correct? That it is a normal thing, normal aging process. Yes, very true. It is a normal aging process. We cannot label it as a disease. That old, getting old is not a disease as such. It is just a part of growing old in a healthy way. But case scenario 8. I have to, in the same geriatric OPD comes this kid. Would you still label him normal? No, absolutely not. Aging is normal. We acknowledge that an elderly person will differ from a young adult. So our assumptions about normality are sensitive to background conditions. But when aging is abnormal, we call it a disease. Hutchison-Gilford progeria syndrome causes children to undergo all the stages of human aging at a bizarrely accelerated rate. They nearly always die by 70 in advanced senescence. Naturalists admit that there is more to the concept of disease than biological malfunction, even if biological malfunction is a necessary condition for the disease. There are definitions, lots of depth need to be going, but interestingly, it is called a two-stage picture. Biological systems do not function properly, and the person with the malfunction is suffering in some way. This is the definition to label something not healthy. The biological system should not function, and the malfunction should result in some suffering. So again, case scenarios 9, 10, 11, very quickly. Some cases of suffering. Will you call this a suffering? This is vaccination. This is a surgical incision. And we all know this. Childbirth. All is well. So will we call this suffering? We see people who are suffering. Okay? But who we don't think are ill or injured, because we do not regard their bodily dysfunction as symptoms of a disease. Vaccination, surgical incisions, ear piercing, or childbirth are some examples that people are suffering, but they are not diseased. So that those definitions need a rethink from Ayurvedic point of view. Schroeder has taken issue with the whole idea of defining health as a property or a state of an individual. Very interesting paper. He argues in contrast that health is a fundamentally comparative term, like tall. Two human beings can both be tall. Even Jaya is tall, even if one is taller than the other. Whereas it makes no sense to think of two straight lines, one of which is straighter than other. We cannot compare this. Yogeshji, I am talking of only lines. Don't think in terms of rekha. So, one of which is straighter than the other. Two straight lines. These are the concepts, very interestingly put by Schroeder, that health should be a comparative term. So, two straight lines, we cannot say one is straighter than the other. Schroeder argues that if we see health as fundamentally comparative or relational, we can recast several conceptual, ethical, and policy debates. So, I would request Vashisht ji to think on this, that we need to recast several conceptual, ethical, and policy. For example, instead of thinking in terms of non-health related differences among healthy, we could think in terms of gradations of health. Schroeder also thinks that his approach makes intergenerational or cross-temporal comparisons easier, since we can say that a medieval serf was healthy in their time, but nonetheless less healthy than a modern person who is by our standards chronically ill, as very well depicted by Rosling in the video. The life expectancy itself was 32 years. So no matter how much healthy we claim that those persons were, our ancestors, now we are having a life expectancy of say about 62. So that itself has got a huge difference. So this rethinking health or healthier than, it is an interesting concept. Needs to be looked into in detail. So global, very quickly, coming back to present times, what has happened? This is the timeline. First conference, global conference on health promotion, WHO. This is a very beautiful symbol, a logo, which can take 10 minutes just for explaining, but it is a circle with a wing, 3 wings, and a main thrust area. Second, Adelaide, 1988, Sundsvall, 91, 97, and 2000. And in 2000, there was a big epoch-making event on from 6 September to 8 September 2000 at United Nations headquarters. It was the Millennium Summit, and it gave an entirely new paradigm. Till then, till 2000, this was the go-to logo. But then we got this Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, 2000 to 2015. These 8 goals, very beautiful, very important: eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, improve maternal health, global partnership. Then the health promotion continued on these MDGs till Shanghai. But in Shanghai, the MDGs were changed to Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, 2015 to 2030. Very, very important. We need to know this. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. On September 25th, 2015, countries adopted a set of goals to stimulate action for people, all 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership, as part of new Sustainable Development Plan, 17 SDGs, 169 associated targets, and 230 indicators. Very beautiful, very important. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals. The third of which is very important: good health and well-being. But everything else is also related with health. What is new and different about these 17 SDGs? First and most important, these goals apply to every nation, every sector, cities, businesses, schools, organizations, all are challenged to act. And this they call universality. Second, it is recognized that the goals are all interconnected in a system. We cannot aim to achieve just one goal. We must achieve them all. This is integration. And finally, it is widely recognized as achieving these goals involves making very big fundamental changes in how we live on earth. This is called transformation. Very quick 17 goals: end poverty, end hunger, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Very interesting. Ensure inclusive and quality education, achieve gender equality, ensure access to water and sanitation, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy, promote inclusive, sustainable economic growth and employment, decent work, build resilient infrastructure, reduce inequality within and among countries, make cities inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable, ensure sustainable consumption and production, urgent action for climate change, conserve and sustainably use oceans and marine resources, and thus manage forests, sustainably manage forests, promote just, peaceful and inclusive societies, and 17, revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Each goal is important in itself and they all are connected. Sustainable development goals, for the goals to be reached, everyone needs to do their part. Governments, private sector, civil society, people like you and me, Yogesh ji. उनके देखे से जो आ जाती है मुंह पर रौनक, वो समझते हैं कि बीमार का हाल अच्छा है. Thank you very much. I could go on and on with one more very interesting concept. Humans and their associated microbiomes as part of an ecosystem that can be evaluated like other ecosystems as healthy or not. When we are talking of health, concepts of health and determinants of health, health, ecology and the microbiome cannot be left behind. Now is the time to think of that also, the internal environment, not just the external environment. Thank you again. Thanks a lot. So open for the questions. I hope I was within the time. I had to rush, but if there are any questions for the concepts, we'll discuss that. Otherwise, I end that.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a very wonderful, elaborative, yet crispy presentation. I am very, the information you gave about the concept of health and the research going on, that inspires us to improve reading habit, refer the journals, refer the events which are going on outside India about the health perspective. It is very stimulating lecture for all of us, and the essay participants will definitely be benefited with the lecture, with this talk. I am very thankful to you for this presentation. I request Dr. Gopal Basich sir to share his thoughts.
Well, this was an excellent presentation, and that says it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I welcome our other panelists also. The speakers like B.S. Prasad sir is also here. I am thankful to Anup Thakur sir for giving his time for us, delivering his presentation on preservation of health. This is going to be a wonderful event. I think we have come to the end of day 2 and 3 more days, and the participants and learners of health will be benefited with the excellent talks on day 3, 4, 5 also. So we will be having the next presentation tomorrow by our speakers, Professor S.K. Khandel sir and Professor Baghel sir at the time scheduled time. So I am thankful to all of you again, all the participants who are live on Facebook, Dr. Basich sir, Dr. Anagha and Anish, especially to Mr. Sandeep, who is technically helping us. Thank you one and all. Thank you so much.